So welcome everyone, we finally made it. So after 5 long years, we're back in JanusCon in a hopefully nice enough venue. And before I forget, if you didn't get a chance to grab the Wi-Fi password here, this is the SSID, this is the password, so easy enough to remember, I hope. And we are also streaming the event, and we are using Janus to do it in real time. So feel free to share this link over social networks or with your colleagues back at home if you want them to attend the events remotely. I'll leave it here just a few seconds later if you want to get that. And as I was saying, I mean, it's been a while since we last met, because back in 2019, it was September, we were very happy, much younger. We were so excited about how the event turned out. We said, let's do it every year, it will be great. But then, as we all know, something happens that basically prevented us from doing that. And so it took a while, but eventually we managed to come back for a second edition of Janus, which is in this second edition is important for us for a few different reasons. The first one being that if you look at number 2 and you turn it into binary, it becomes this. And this is actually the 10th anniversary of Janus. So that didn't feel like as much to me, but it actually was 10 years ago when we started working on this, which was really exciting. Thank you very much. And the number 10 is important in Naples for a few reasons, but mainly this one. And this guy over here is the reason why we are all wearing this T-shirt over here. So we wanted to homage him as well with that big number 10 and Janus as well. And we are in a new venue that I hope you like. I mean, when we thought about this place as the venue for Janus, we were really excited because it's a university-owned place and it's really gorgeous. It's where the master thesis discussions for students used to happen. So it's a really beautiful place. And we have the university, and here Simon, we really have to thank Simon for making this happen, because the university sponsored this event for us. So it actually made it so that we could do the conference here today. And before we start with the real deal, I mean, I did it last time and I'll do it again because it's important. I have some safety tips for you in Naples, starting from, obviously, I mean, this is becoming kind of a meme, but I feel like I had to repeat it more than once, especially for a specific guy in the room that tried to to distract everybody else into thinking that pineapples on pizza are acceptable. They are not, especially in Naples. Do not try to do that. It's not safe for you. I'm just warning you. I mean, Napoli is a beautiful place, but don't ask pineapple on your pizza. Other safety tip, you may know that in Naples we have this sfogliatella, and sfogliatella comes in 2 different flavors. It's either riccia or frolla, and you have to pick one. So you have, in Naples we have a strong feeling that one is better than the other. Each person has a different feeling. I have my own choice, and you will have to choose, and I will ask each one of you which one you prefer by the end of tomorrow, and it will be either the right or the wrong choice. So no pressure, you know. So and finally, football, of course. Naples, in Naples, we very much care about football. We won the league after 30 years last year. This year, we're not doing that well, but we're still very much passionate about football. If you're passionate about football as well, make sure you're not the supporter of those teams with stripes over there, because they are not very well accepted in Naples, and I cannot guarantee your safety if you go around with a Juventus or Milan or Inter shirt around. Again, just for your safety, just saying. Maybe instead do pay a visit to the Maradona mural over there, which was really beautiful. I went there myself yesterday with Javi, and it was really gorgeous. And I was saying how it's basically an important year for us, not only because Janus is 10 years old, but our company is also 15 years old this year. So I think we were founded in March, so it was basically last year that we turned 15. And as you can see, we were all much younger back then, much more naive and excited about the future. So it's an important milestone for sure. But again, we are here mostly to talk about Janus, and Janus was indeed founded, created, first pushed on GitHub 10 years ago, and specifically we pushed it on the 11th of February 2014. For some reason, GitHub says 11 years ago and not 10, and it makes me think that maybe they used ChatGPT to do the math, but I may be wrong. And our community grew very much over the years, and we were really excited about that. So you can see that there was a huge spike during the pandemic, of course, because Janus was helpful to many individuals and companies during that period. But I also see a nice trend growing up. So I really have to be thankful to the whole community, to all of you, for actually trusting in Janus and making it grow that much. And especially I want to thank all the contributors to Janus, because Janus wouldn't be what it is today without the contributions of so many of you, and specifically almost 300 people contributed, even maybe a single line of code, but a meaningful single line of code for us. So a lot of people contributed to Janus, and that was really important for us because we wanted a community behind the project, not only something that we were the only ones working on. And speaking about community, we recently moved away from the historic Google Groups group, mostly because it had started to become a bit unmanageable and a bit harder to navigate and so on. And we went for a free discourse group instead. And so if you are not subscribed already, please do so, because we managed to organize the different topics a bit better. It's a much easier website to navigate, to get some help or to give help to others. So it's been really nice. And just a few words about us. So you may know about us. We are Meetecho. We are a small company. Our offices are basically like 10 minutes in that direction. And some of you may know me already, but there's also Tobia that you may have met at the reception downstairs. He's our CEO. Alessandro Amirante, who's taking care of the streaming right now, who is sitting somewhere behind there. And we have Simon, of course, who basically tutored all of us and basically made us know and made us love real-time communications. He'll talk about this shortly after my presentation, to talk a bit how the university is helping students become more aware of RTC and making them love this in an experimental and proactive way as well. Then we have Danilo as well, who is taking care of mostly the commercial and financial stuff. Paolo Saviano will talk about our RTC CDN that is actually powering the streaming that we are doing right now. We will make a presentation later today. Alessandro Toppi is the creator of Janus, who is over there. By the way, if you see a white badge, that's basically a Meetecho guy. So if you need any help or for anything, just find one of us with a white badge. Feel free to ask us about anything, even if it's a tourist curiosity. Where can I see this? Where I can see that? We're always happy to help. And Alessandro will talk a bit about Janus later on, which is our Node.js stack that we use pretty much for everything right now. He'll explain more later. And there are also a couple of people that if you were here 5 years ago, you haven't met yet, which are Paolo Navarretta, who basically is our front-end developer. So he basically rewrote from scratch all the user interface that we're using now, for instance, in the platform that we're using for streaming the event today. And we have Antonio Bevilacqua, who is our new hire for anything related to machine learning and artificial intelligence. And tomorrow we'll talk a bit about the first effort that he did for us in that regard, that is a new innovative approach towards real-time transcriptions that we are also using already for our own purposes. And as a company, I mean, we are a small company doing a few different things. So first of all, of course, we do a lot of consulting for companies that need help using WebRTC or Janus for whatever they needed to do. We provide commercial support. We also have licensing options for those that may not be comfortable with the GPL3 for any reason. We also have a few turnkey solutions. So we also have some, let's say, quote unquote, proprietary tools that we use, for instance, for video mixing, for broadcasting to a CDN, or for post-processing recordings automatically, or other stuff. And we also are providers of the streaming of real-time events. So, for instance, the solution that we are using today for broadcasting this event is the same that we are using to broadcast ITF meetings and RIPE meetings and so on and so forth. And we are definitely looking forward to find more events to basically help with our tool. So in case that's something that may be interest of you, please feel free to reach us. But of course, we're here to talk about JanusCon first of all. And JanusCon would not be possible today without the help of some very important people and sponsors. And so, of course, with QXIP, we are the main organizers of the event. And I really have to thank QXIP for the help that they gave us, especially Celeste and Lorenzo. They did really a great help. They were really of a great help for organizing all the logistics with us. And I have to thank the Department of Information Technology again, because it's the department that Simon is a full-time professor in, and it is a part of the University of Naples. And again, they sponsored the venue that we are all in here today. So I'm really grateful for them for that, because as if you organize an event, you know that it's always hard to find the right place for an event. And then, I mean, it wouldn't be Naples if we didn't use pizzas also as say, badges for our sponsors as well. And our Quattro Stagioni sponsor, that is the fanciest sponsor that we have, is Seatfront. And I'm really grateful for, especially to Andreas Granig, that I managed to, we had a chat about this, and we were really excited to sponsor the event. And there is some people from Seatfront already also today. And they are a really exciting company working on automation of RTC calls, SIP, but not only, also WebRTC and stuff like this. They will have a presentation later today, and most importantly, they will also sponsor the social event tonight. So make sure they are felt appreciated when you get to meet them later on. And our friends at Digital Samba I mean, they were the very first ones to come on board as sponsors for the event. So I was really excited about that. And Robert was here 5 years ago when the event first happened. At the time, he just attended, but this time he's also not only sponsoring, but also presenting something exciting about the work that Digital Samba has been doing with respect to Janus. So I'm really excited to see this presentation and see how it goes. And they are the Bufala sponsor, which is a very good pizza if you want to try this. And last but not least, we have the Marinara sponsor, and we have two different sponsors for that. So we have WebRTC Ventures and Software Mention, and most of you will know them as very good companies for WebRTC consulting of different sorts. And unfortunately, Aaron from WebRTC Ventures couldn't be there, but Alberto, I think he will come later in today, and he will have a presentation tomorrow about how to use Janus with LLMs, so something very interesting and a hot topic over there. And our friends of Software Mention, there's a lot of people of Software Mention today, so I really have to thank them about it. And they are also organizing an event later this year during the fall that is called RTC On. I was there at their first event a few months ago, and I really loved it. I presented the bandwidth estimation stuff out there. It was really a great event. And if you're interested in that event, feel free to reach out to the Software Mention guys around there. And they will also have a presentation later on today. And before we proceed, there's another event coming in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks, that is called ComCon, that some of you may know about. And it's actually happening in two different places, London and San Francisco. And Dan and Marco were kind enough to sponsor, basically to offer a free ticket to one of you guys. So the only thing that you want to do if you want to participate in the event is find one of those guys, make a selfie with them, and then post it on your socials by tagging ComCon and so on. I think that if you get a selfie with both of them, you get more chances or not. I mean, I don't know. You'll have to ask them about the rules. Just kidding. But I mean, ComCon is a really great event, and I encourage you to have a look at that. So as I was saying, tonight we will have a social event, which is actually going to happen real close to here. So you just go out of the venue, turn left, and go straight until you hit the sea, basically. Whenever you see some sort of an arch, that's basically where the social event is. And again, we have to thank Seatfront for making this happening. So they're sponsoring the social events, and I'm really grateful for them for this. And this is how you can get to the event. So again, real easy. You just get out, straight line, and we're there. So like a 2 minutes walk. And I'm also really excited about the schedule that we have these couple of days, because each of the speakers contributed really something truly unique that I'm really, really excited to hear about. So I will not put the whole schedule here. You can just go on the website and have a look at what is happening. But the next couple of talks will be by Simon on his efforts at the university to foster WebRTC among his students. And then we will have Lorenzo talking about his work at QXIP. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a bit about what has been happening in Janus in the past 5 years or so, in Janus and a bit WebRTC as well, and where we are going forward. So a bit of a trip down memory lane, if you will. And last time we met at JanusCon, we still were at version 0. And I mean, when we say version 0, I mean, version 0 never meant much for me. So it always was 0 dot something, but it was really just a way of basically putting a label on a specific version and so on. And we had Alessandro there that really insisted. He said, no, we need to have a 1.0 some point. It makes it, otherwise it doesn't look like we're stable or something like this. And I felt we needed to wait for a big change to happen. And that happened when actually multi-stream was merged. So when we finally merged the capability for Janus to have multiple streams of different kinds in the same peer connection, that was a large enough refactoring of the WebRTC Janus internals that it actually warranted such a change. So now, a couple of years ago, we managed to have a version 1 for Janus itself. And multi-stream was actually quite helpful because it helped us basically optimize many of the aspects of the WebRTC internals in the first place. Since you can put more stuff within the same peer connection, you optimize a bit the use of the networks because you have less ports, less threads as well if you're not using loops and something like this. So there are several advantages to doing that. And the previous version of Janus is not gone because I know that a lot of companies are still relying on it. And so it's still there. We call it legacy. And it's basically, we mostly just put bug fixes, security fixes, and so on as commits there. But we also add some new features from time to time. Even though most of the new features are only going to land in version 1, those easy enough to backport, we provide to 0x as well, but otherwise not as much. So if you're still on 0.x, it's definitely a good idea to start looking into 1x sooner enough. So it's not that different in terms of APIs. Some plugins may work a bit differently, but otherwise it's just a different way of managing peer connections in the first place. And for both versions, we recently, I mean, not recently, but definitely since the previous JanusCon, we added a more or less specific change log that describes the new features that were, new features or new bug fixes that were added since the previous version. And it's a good way to track whether or not something that you're interested in has been added since the version that you're using right now, for instance. And we have different change logs for both 1x and 0x because by now they are basically working on parallel tracks, let's say. So they are different things. And since the last JanusCon, we also worked a lot on scalability and reliability, and we mostly had to because, as we all know, the pandemic hit, and we were providing streaming and real-time participation tools for ITF and rep meetings, for instance. But then, back then, we only had a handful of remote participants, and then suddenly it was all remote participants. So you had to have something that could sustain a load of hundreds, if not thousands, of participants in the same room that should have been able to communicate with one another. And so this is for instance, the effort that I described at ComCon a few years ago when we explained how we turned the tables around, how we use Janus in a much more scalable way, which is basically an appetizer of the talk that Paolo will make later on when talking about the RTC CDN, and he'll go a bit more in the specifics of how that all worked. I mentioned that Alessandro was the author of Janode, and Janode also came alive after the last JanusCon happened. And we've been using Janode really a lot for many things. Alessandro will explain everything later on in his presentation, so I'm not going to spoil anything. We worked a lot on simulcast as well, because there were some important changes in simulcast, especially in the way that Chrome did it. And so we optimized a lot the usage of simulcast. We added support for VP9 simulcast that Chrome implemented a few months ago. We worked a lot on AV1 and SVC as well as part of this, which was an important deal because we all know that AV1 is going to be the WebRTC codec of the future. And since it has SVC features built in rather than added on as an afterthought, having SVC capability is really important. And I spent really a lot of time in making sure that the weird semantics of the SVC functionality of AV1 actually worked. And if you want to learn more, I actually made an in-depth presentation at FOSDEM just a few months ago. As part of the scalability aspects, especially for multi-stream, we also added support for cascaded publishers across different Janus video rooms, mostly because we wanted to have a way by which you could have different Janus video room instances potentially on different servers to somehow exchange information about publishers so that you could advertise the publisher that is on Janus #1, be advertised via the video room API, so not via some artifacts using different plugins on a completely different Janus instance instead. And so we have an API that kind of works. It works nicely. Some people are already using it. And we are definitely interested in feedback to see if we can expand it even further for even more cool things. We've been playing a lot also with WIP and WEP, and WAP was just there for a little while, but I always like to push it there also because in Italian they're called Quico and Qua, if you're interested to see why I have this picture associated with those names over there. And WIP and WEP are technology that I personally care very much about because WebRTC broadcasting, so using WebRTC to broadcast to a very large audience, was actually the topic of my PhD back then towards the beginning of WebRTC. So it's something that I've always been passionate about. And so seeing that it's now getting traction and the industry is getting interested in that is something that makes me feel quite happy. And so it's something that we definitely want to keep track of ourselves. And so this is why, for instance, I experimented and prototyped stuff a bit. So we have a very simple Node.js server that you can put in front of a Janus instance to turn it into a WIP server. And we have the same for web. So you have a very simple application that you can put in front of Janus to make it work as a web. End-to-end encryption, that's a major use case and one of the main use cases why insertable streams were added, but also because they allow you to experiment a bit. So for instance, I used it to prototype using Lyra as a codec implemented in WebAssembly, and then tricking the WebRTC stack into negotiating a different codec, but actually using Lyra for the job. But that's something that insertable streams allowed me to do. And we did a few things for SIP as well. So for instance, we added support for call transfers, which is a feature that many people were asking for. We added support for RED as a redundancy mechanism for Opus. Not all plugins use it, but most do. And there is some work that we need to do to improve it, but it's mostly there. We made a lot of improvements on the audio bridge itself because we use the audio bridge heavily in our own virtual event platform. And so we made a lot of enhancements, not only in terms of audio quality, so for instance, by adding noise suppression and stuff like this, but also to improve the reliability, the efficiency when a lot of participants are involved. And so what's in store for the future instead? Because I've talked a lot about what happened, but we are also interested in seeing what is about to happen. And I mentioned briefly how at the latest RTC on, I presented my work on bandwidth estimation, and that's an effort that I was really passionate about because it took a lot of work and it's now in a decent enough point, but it's been out there and I haven't received enough feedback. So if you're really interested in this as well, please start testing it, please start using it so that we can fine tune it and make it ready enough for production, basically. We definitely want to have more fun with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I'll explain how Antonio will present something about this tomorrow. So specifically, we'll talk about his efforts on real-time transcriptions that we have been doing so far with DeepGram, but we wanted to somehow use internally as well. And of course, there's many more things that we can do. We could do stuff with video, additional stuff with audio, like summarization and so on. That's definitely an open area of interest for all of us, for sure. At Camellia World last week, I introduced a new trunking mode for the C plugin, so it's also something else that I've been working on. And something that I also want to expand a bit, because it could actually be beneficial to a lot of companies using Janus for SIP usage out there. And talking about SIP, I'm also interested in seeing the work on real-time text for emergency services move forward as well. Not only because it's interesting from a technology perspective, so using data channels on one side and another protocol on the other side, but also because it will be important for emergency services as they will get standardized for for new generation services rather than the technology that existed before. I explained a bit how we use, for instance, insertable streams and WebAssembly to prototype with Lyra, and I expect that more of these activities will happen soon because WebAssembly is going to become more important in the future. And I'm personally also looking forward to media over quick, maybe with a bit of a scared bias, let's say, just to see what media over quick can become, how dangerous it can be to interoperability, because I see this getting a bit more towards the silos-oriented approach. But from a technology perspective, I'm definitely interested in seeing if we can get, for instance, WebRTC and media over quick to interact and more or less seamlessly a bit. So I'm definitely interested in getting a media over quick mode for Janus or something that allows me to experiment a bit more with that. But we will need to wait more for a more stable and reliable web transport specification first, and then see which implementations become available. And I think I'm pretty much on time. So I hope that, again, that you are all feeling comfortable, that you're all feeling okay. And basically now just sit back and enjoy. I hope you will have a great event. So thank you very much.